This teardrop covers a pilot's gaze to the instrument panel. This bar catches sweat before it hits the lens. Nothing on these glasses are decoration. They were designed for war. This is Chasing Beauty, and today we're looking at the design behind the Aviator. Before these glasses existed, the only eye protection a pilot had was goggles. Sealed around the face, strapped over a leather flight cap, and lined with fur. They were fine for the early days, when pilots only reached a few thousand feet in an open cockpit. But pilots kept climbing. On February 27th of 1920, a test pilot named Shorty Schroeder took an open cockpit Lepaire biplane to 33,000 feet over McCook Field in Ohio. His oxygen gave out. His goggles had fogged over and he couldn't see. So he lifted them, just for a second, to find the emergency oxygen valve. In that second, the moisture on his eyeballs froze solid. He went blind. Then he lost consciousness. The plane dropped into a 6-mile dive, falling straight down for 2 minutes. Somewhere around 2,000 feet, the sound of his fuel tanks condensing in the denser air jolted him awake. He somehow landed the plane, unable to see out of either eye. His fellow test pilot, John McReady, helped pull him from the cockpit. McReady didn't forget what he saw. By the late 1920s, cockpits were finally closing. Glass canopies and sealed fuselages. No more frozen eyeballs. But there was another issue. Pilots were flying higher than ever, through thinner atmosphere that filtered less UV. And the closed canopy turned glare into something inescapable. Pilots were reporting headaches, nausea, and disorientation. Sometimes they could be out of commission for days after a flight. In 1929, McReady went to Bausch Lomb, one of the biggest optical companies in the world, and told them what pilots actually needed. Not goggles, something lighter, something that cut the glare and radiation without distorting color, so the pilot could still read their instruments. It took 7 years. By 1936, Bausch & Lomb had a prototype that they called the anti-glare. Green-tinted lenses that filtered ultraviolet light and cut glare while preserving natural color. But the lens was only half the solution. The frame had to survive a cockpit. Pilots wore radio headsets, so the temples had to be thin enough to slide underneath without pressure points. But thin wire bends, so they added a second bar across the top, the double bridge. It braced the frame, giving the flimsy wire enough tension and rigidity to hold its shape. But there was still one more issue. The lenses had to cover the full field of vision, especially downward. A pilot in a 1930s aircraft was constantly glancing down at his instruments. A round lens wouldn't reach low enough. The teardrop was the answer. Wide across the brow where the light hit, and narrow at the cheek where it didn't. It followed the natural shape of the eye's visual field. In 1937, Bausch & Lomb put them on sale to the public with a metal frame. They branded them Ray-Ban, as in banning rays. So we have pilots from the 1920s to thank for the world's most iconic sunglasses.